One needn't be Catholic. One needn't share all of Father Tribou's beliefs, secular or sacred, to like and admire what he stood for and the way he stood for it.
George was just one of a kind. He was his own person. But he had this teacher, her name was Mrs. Miller, and she taught English. And they had to write an essay, but she read them all next day, and she said, "Tribou, stand up." And George stood up, and she said, "Tribou, you should be a priest." Oh, he was a great brother. You know, he was strict, but he was good, and he was kind to my sister and I. He loved his family, he loved his parents. He didn't like to be the center of anything. And he ended up being the center of everything.
I well remember school year 1953-54, junior English. That was my first contact with him. But he really pushed us, very much so. And he was also learning his own brand of punishments.
When he was a young priest, sometimes he would come over and preach at Holy Souls. Fire and brimstone, I'm telling you. But mostly his preaching was positive, encouraging, knowing something of the frustrations of, what it's like to be a teenager. So, he was sympathetic to his boys, and that's what his priesthood called him to do.
Father Tribou was the perfect match for the environment that he would spend 50 years in. He was a teacher for many, many years, and then he became the principal under Monsignor Galvin, and then Monsignor Galvin eventually left, and then he also became then the rector, and so he really became the father of the house.
Of course, he smoked that cigar. That cigar was in his hand or in his mouth most of the time. You would see Father Tribou walk up and down the corridors, and of course the transom windows were open, and if he heard noise coming out of that classroom, he would stop, inhale, and puff that smoke right through the transoms. And so everyone, as soon as they smelled cigar smoke, quiet.
He seemed to instinctively know the boy that needed a gentle hand and the boy that needed the iron hand.
It was discipline. He was a disciplined man. He believed in discipline as an ethic. But by discipline, I don't think he meant the paddle. Discipline of mind, discipline of pursuit, faithful to family, to church, to craft, to education, to study, discipline.
Within a year of his ordination, George began a 51-year love affair with Catholic high school. Perfect fit. He loved the boys. He particularly loved those who were a challenge, those who were troubled or troublesome, those whose homes were less than ideal.
Father Tribou was just a gifted horse whisperer when it came to dealing with adolescent boys. He knew how to inspire them. He knew how to teach them. He knew how to discipline them. He knew how to push them to their limits academically or athletically or emotionally. And I've never seen anyone who quite had it like Father Tribou had it.
No, I think he was a great influence. My boys were lucky and they had a wonderful father, but the additional advice and the inspiration that they got from Father Tribou, I think really molded them.
I think at that age, boys want to know about men who made a difference in people's lives. And when they hear stories about a man, whether it's from a history book or whether it's a man's statue outside a school, they want to know, okay, what did this man do?
And what comes to mind is what maybe Michelangelo was thinking when he took that discarded piece of marble and crafted David out of it and gave that marble a hard time. He hammered and he chiseled and he sandpapered, and eventually the man David came out of that marble. And so I think maybe God might be thinking, you know, I have a willing person here to take the punishment so that he can do great works.
You are going to hear three things again and again in this arena. You're going to hear never be a bystander. You're going to hear your integrity should be on full display at all times. And you're going to hear you're a good man. Now, act like it.
A legend is someone who, through not one action in his life, but in the way that he lived his life, made it better for others. And that's what Father Tribou did. I can't tell you one great thing that he did. I can tell you hundreds of great things that he did.
He loved those kids in Arkansas, even the bad ones. He couldn't do enough for them. You know, he'd give them hell for something they've done wrong, but he'll go to bat for them. He liked coming home, even though Mom always put that welcome home sign up, and he hated that. 60-some years old. Welcome home. I think I know I'm welcome home, Mom. You don't have to put the damn sign up. He was just George.
I think that's why people love this place, is because it stands for something greater than what we normally hear in our culture. And that was Father Tribou in the flesh. You know, he lived it out in service to us as young men.
What most of these young men get to see and get to experience every single day when they're walking the halls is the product of the vision and the love of Father Tribou for this place.
And if she is moving at constant velocity, that A is 0. That A is 0. When Father was diagnosed with cancer, that was a very serious blow.
He was very sick just before he died, a few months before he died. And we actually took him to my home, and he stayed with us for over 2 weeks. Then we got really sick. I had to take him to the hospital. We talked about life and death, and he said because of his religion and his faith in God and Jesus that he was not afraid of death.
I guess this was maybe 4 or 5 weeks after Father Tribou had returned from the hospital. And I had my door open, and I knew I smelled cigar smoke. So I went to the door, peeked out, and down the hallway with his robe, with this gigantic bandage on his head that looked like a giant turban, Father Tribou is shuffling. He is shuffling along, and he's taking a puff of this cigar, and he's blowing it through the transoms. And I just had tears in my eyes. I was saying, this guy does not stop. He is resilient. He is a tough man. And in his absence, he's keeping an eye on us. He's keeping an eye on the faculty. He's keeping an eye on the students. He's keeping an eye on all of us.
It is my contention that no other priest in the history of our diocese has so influenced as many lives in such a permanent fashion as this remarkable man.
He was the right man in the right place at the right time. We will see the effects of his ministry not only in his students, but in their children and grandchildren, and in our church and the community that they were a part of.
It's good to have heroes from history and heroes from regular life, but people who deliver wisdom. And Father Tribou is somebody who delivers wisdom to a freshman today, just like he did a freshman in 1960.
No one has ever loved this place more than Father Tribou. And when you talk about all the wonderful things you experience at Catholic High, the good experiences, the challenging experiences, it all goes back to George W. Tribou.
This was a man who was committed to this school, teaching, helping boys become men.
Father Tribou was Catholic High. I do pray for him all the time, and I pray for him to pray for us, because I think he has a little pull up there.
He's alive and well in the halls of Catholic High. The inspiration that he instilled in us still lives with us today and still lives with everyone that's part of this school.
He was a force. He was a force. He was a life force. He was created for this. I think he felt he was created. That's why God put him on this planet.
He knew who he was. He knew what he believed. He understood the values that had made him George Tribou. Father Tribou gave it to you with a bark off. Gentle or firm, but you got the straight stuff. You got pure Tribou coming straight at you.
What a travesty it would be if this school that Father Tribou built was not cared for by its alumni. Instead, this school that Father Tribou built is buttressed by these alumni, is fulfilled by these alumni, and is made better by its sons. He built the ship. We get the great honor of sailing it.